With these emergency loans coming fast and furious by the government, has capitalism in this country changed forever?
Some say so. Let's bring in our Bulls and Bears for some answers. We've got Wayne Rogers, Peter Schiff, Pat Dorsey, Jonas Max Ferris, and we also are very pleased to have Michelle Girard with RBS Greenwich Capital join us here. Let me go to you, Wayne, because it is a philosophical question here, and we just heard Mario Gabelli say, look, you know, we've been through these tough times before. He was there in times that maybe weren't challenged exactly the same way, but in which people said the sky's falling. Is what the government is doing now a track that we can't get off of? Eventually, we're going to be socializing more.
No, we'll definitely get off. But by the way, all due respect to Mario, I don't think he lived through 81. I'm an older person. We lived through 81, 82.
That's kind of you to say, but I think he did. But anyway.
Well, in 1974, you remember interest rates went to 16%.
Wait a minute, you're saying Mario wouldn't remember, but I would.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Wayne.
In 81, 82, they went to 22%. We've been through these kind of crises before. Yes, this we will get through, but this is major because it's world. The problem that occurred, two things occurred. The government, the Congress, if you will, has allowed everything to get, quote, too big to fail. Antitrust was not done. It becomes now a world crisis, not a national crisis, not a local crisis. Big problem. Second problem is they allowed the banks, the commercial banks, to get together.
It's only got 12 more points to make.
Two major ones. To get the commercial banks together with the investment banks by canceling Glass-Steagall. Major mistake.
We shouldn't have canceled Glass-Steagall.
Is this the end of capitalism as we know it, Peter?
Well, capitalism has been gone for a long time, but I think this is another nail in the coffin for sure. You know, with all due respect to Wayne, what we're about to go through is nothing like the 1970s. It's going to be so much worse.
He was kind of agreeing with you, though.
But apart from this deal, apart from flushing $85 billion taxpayer dollars down the toilet, which is what the government has done, and of course this is just the beginning, it's going to be a lot more. They shredded more of the Constitution. The Federal Reserve has no authority to do this. They can't nationalize companies. When you have an agency that can print money, you can't let it print that money and go buy up businesses. If they can buy up sick companies, which is what they're doing now, they can buy up healthy companies. They can buy anything they want. We are giving too much power to the government. The government abuses power. It corrupts. It's corrupting absolutely. All these problems we're having now are the result of government interference in the market. We've got to get back to freedom.
Pat Dorsey.
Done it for the last 30 years. That's the problem.
Pat Dorsey, Mario Gabelli said the government might end up at the end of the day or the week or the year having made money from this deal. Is that possible?
I think it's absolutely possible. I mean, I think that's, one thing you saw coming out of RTC. You saw it coming out of LT's long-term capital management as well. These are distressed assets right now. AIG, for example, just to take that one, is an extremely valuable company. It's extremely valuable assets that it simply was unable to liquidate in time to post collateral. Now, you back it and you allow those assets to get sold, and these CDSs, many of which only have a year maturity, to run off. It is entirely possible they could make money on this deal.
Well, if there's so much value there, why can't the free market find it? What does the Fed know that we don't? Are these guys geniuses? They're rocket scientists?
It's a good point, but we have other members of the panel that want to chime in.
Well, let Michelle jump in here. As you've listened to this, what jumps to your mind?
I have to say, I think it all started with Bear Stearns. I think, that sort of opened Pandora's box. And once we went down that very slippery road, there was no going back. The Fed really had no credibility. When the Fed and Treasury got everybody in a room and tried to knock heads and said to them, with respect to Lehman, work this out, Wall Street said, no, you work it out. And so, really they played chicken and the government blinked. And after that, I think with Lehman, there wasn't much question, but it was certainly with AIG, there was much more exposure. It would have been much too clamorous. I don't like the outcome. I guess it's the lesser of all evils.
Jonas Max Ferris is somebody who used to trade in gold. You know gold very well. Of course, there was a flight to gold today. Peter's very happy. He was up 11.5%. How long will the drag, all the spending, even if it's eventually paid back, all this government spending, how much of a drag will it be on the dollar, and for how long?
I still think the dollar is ultimately going to be the number one currency, because when there's a true global panic, this is still the country. But that aside, let's go to the philosophical issue. This will sound vaguely communist, but I assure you, capitalism changed in 1907 during the first big panic, and changed fundamentally in 1929 with the Depression. It hasn't been the same ever since, because free market, unregulated capitalism, I hate to say it, collapses in on itself in speculative bubbles, and has happened throughout history, and it happened as recently as Russia when I was there in the 90s before they got bigger government going on there.
Free market capitalism. That was crony capitalism.
Well, when you have, to Wayne's point, which is excellent, when you have unregulated mergers and companies get too big and the gambling gets too high, it always ends in catastrophe, and then the government's always there to pick up the pieces. Now, the government's to blame on some of this real estate bubble stuff, but without the government right now, we'd be at Dow 5000.
All right, our vaguely communist friend, we have to